Hola, hola. My name is Ricardo. I am the host of the Lucha Jovers podcast here in the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. We are a Spanish speaking show dedicated to discussing and analyzing pro wrestling from all across the world. From AW to CMLL, we talk about American wrestling, Japanese wrestling, and of course, Lucha Libre. If something big happened in the pro wrestling world, we will talk about it. So if you know Spanish or have a friend that knows Spanish or want to practice your lucha libre pronunciations, go listen to the Lucha Jovers podcast right here in the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Nos vemos por ahí.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you work your A game. Amen, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you work your A game. Amen, no rain from the track when we.
Hey now, it's the Mike and JD show, and I am your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined by my unindicted co-conspirator, JD by God Oliva, and we are live for the first time ever on the Voices of Wrestling Network. I am pumped, as you can tell. We're bringing our A game over here to VOW. How are you doing, JD?
Man, we really did bring the A game. I have stepped up my lighting game. We got new music. Our buddy Godilla gave us a track of his,
Revelation and Godilla. Yes, sir. Yes,
Revelation
sir.
and Godilla. Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. I put that together today, and it got me fired up, man. Like, It's funny. Like, we've been doing this show for 2 years. Like, it's funny. It feels like we've been doing Mike and JD for a long time, but it's really only been like 4 months that we rebranded our show. And now it feels like we're kind of like rebranding again. So I don't know, man. It's crazy. I haven't been this excited for a show in a long time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I've been super stoked. JD and I, this is something, that we've just been so excited about all week since we decided to make this change. And I just want to start the show off right now. Because there's been some folks in the Voices of Wrestling Discord. So go head over to voiceswrestling.com/Discord and join our Discord, join the conversation over there. We have our own channel. So when this show got announced onto that Discord, someone was like, the Fight Game Media and the VOW war has started. No, that's not what's happening at all. In fact, I'm still friends with all those guys are still in their Discord. I was chatting with Garrett just like an hour ago, and he was pumping me up, telling me that we're going to do great and giving me advice and stuff like that. So the reason why we jumped ship over to the Voices of Wrestling was because that the free feed over there went away because of the Blue Wire host. They decided to cut that feed. And so we're like, you know what? We had a good thing going on that free feed. Our audience was growing. We were like top of the charts every single episode that we had. Yep. And we didn't want to lose that. And so when Garrett told us that that free feed was going away, and he said maybe said, hey, why don't you guys, or to the whole network, is like, why don't you guys, if you have the ability to do something else, why don't you go ahead and look into it? So naturally, JD and I, we talked and we reached out to Joe and Rich. We'd become friendly with them over the last couple of months because we've been in their Discord. Joe was a guest on our show. We reached out and we worked everything out. So if you guys are watching us right now on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube, we're going to do our best to go live each and every single week. We will also have our own feed. We'll have the Mike and JD show feed. So if you just search for that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. I didn't even know that Amazon Music had podcasts. I learned that this week from Rich. Rich taught me that. So because I had to sign our show up for it. So you can get them all there. We will also be on the Voices of Wrestling feed. So if you're just subscribed to the Voices of Wrestling channel, we will pop up there along with other great shows like The Flagship, like Shake Them Ropes with our buddy Jeff Hawkins, like Garrett Kidney's show, the TNA History Pod. I think it's called You Got to Be Kidding Me. So we'll be on that network with those guys. And then we also started something that's super exciting, JD, something you and I have been talking about doing for a long time. We actually started our own Patreon, man, and that's kind of scary because we're like asking people to pay to listen to us, but we already have some subscribers, man, and we're going to be growing our content over there on that network.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is really a big step up for us. I'm real excited about our Patreon because we've been doing when we moved to Mike, when we rebranded our show, used to be Brace for Impact, we started kind of doing these historical retrospectives, right? And now we're going to bring that over with us to it because we still have to do the WCW Invasion Part 2. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited to do that. You and I are also going to be creating some Patreon exclusive stuff. My writing that I was doing on Substack is now just going to live on our Mike and JD Patreon feed, man. And then Mike's going to bring back Brace for Impact. I'm going to do something a little bit more AEW focused. Like, we know that we're competing with a lot of top name, people in this space. And if you're willing to give us some money every month, and Mike and I both feel we kind of got to go above and beyond as much as we can to kind of give you guys a little something extra, as like, we owe it to you. So if you're on board already, thanks. If you're thinking about it, please consider, because you're not going to find harder working guys, I don't think.
Yeah, so if you head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show, you can become a subscriber there. We actually just put up our part 1 of our WCW invasion of the WWF from 2001. We just put up part 1 for free. So if you want to just test that out, go ahead and give it a shot and tell us what you think. And if you like it, please think about plopping down $5 and to support the show. Look, that Patreon is going to help kind of subsidize how we do this, because I got to tell you, my wife's not going to let me do it forever if I don't make any money.
Yeah.
This is kind of how I pay for like the equipment and how I pay for the apps that I have and all that stuff. I gotta resubscribe to the Impact subscription service now because I'm doing Brace for Impact again, which I'm actually pretty excited about because a lot of people have been requesting it. They missed that show, so that is coming back. That's going to be on Patreon. And we also have our own YouTube channel. Go to the at the Mike and JD show on YouTube. We're gonna be posting a lot of clips and stuff like that, a lot of stuff, fun stuff for you guys. But hey, let's get right into the show, man. I know a lot of people didn't want to hear us talk too much just about the switch over, because there's a lot of news that's going down right now. And for some reason, every time we're about to do something big, CM Punk likes to stir up shit. He is a boon to the podcast business. Honestly, he's a hero and a legend to all podcasters everywhere. CM Punk, thank you. But the king of collision, CM Punk, is at it again.
As a Chicago guy, I appreciate that CM Punk is willing to light things on fire and piss off everybody, because it does nothing but help us. You and I typically get our best YouTube numbers when Punk is freaking out. Like, I can't thank the man enough. I can't thank him enough, really.
Yeah. So our buddy BJ Bethel, friend of the show, he's from SE Scoops. He said the rumors are going around that many AEW talents have been booked for Collision and then unbooked suddenly. And he named specifically Hangman Adam Page and Nick Nemeth. Other reports surfaced that Matt Hardy was one of those names, Christopher Daniels, Isaiah Cassidy, which was unconfirmed. BJ then goes on to say that Hangman Page was set to do a pre-tape at Saturday's Collision in Greensboro, close to where Page lives. He was then told not to come to the building and that the pre-tape would occur off-site, according to the story from BJ. But that was a request from Punk. That's what BJ had said. But then Punk told sources at this network, at Voices of Wrestling, on their Patreon, go to patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling or voicesofwrestling.com. Our guys had a story that they basically got it from the horse's mouth almost. Like, Punk told their source directly that he had nothing to do with it. And in fact, there was a promo that Punk had cut after the show was over, that trying to make a joke at Page's expense, basically saying he wasn't a draw, something like that. The joke wasn't very good, apparently. He actually reached, he called him a peg warmer. Yeah. He ended up reaching out to apologize. But Punk himself told a flagship source that he is 100% the reason that Nick Nemeth and Christopher Daniels who is talent relations, were told not to come to Collision. And this is stems for Nick Nemeth. It stemmed because Punk and Nemeth had an altercation about Nemeth was tweeting. I don't know why Nemeth feels like he can even say Punk's name out loud. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the hell. Like, how does this guy even have a job still?
Trying to score points with the guys on the other side, right? I mean, unfortunately, this is the lines are drawn to the sand. It's like you gotta pick and choose, but do you really have to pick and choose? Like when you're kind of lucky to have a job, is it a good idea to try to piss off a guy who's kind of volatile?
Yeah, kind
of more than volatile.
And why would you do it in public if you're a jobber? Like that makes no sense to me. Like, I know he's got some protection from the elite, but come on.
Can you imagine Iron Mike Sharp talking shit about Hulk Hogan in 1986?
Yeah, it just doesn't. It makes no damn sense to me. Daniel, go ahead, JD.
No, I was gonna say, what really makes no sense to me is the reaction to this, because people love to freak out about everything Punk does. And on our old show, on our old feed, we used to joke that people's like, "Oh, Punk's a politician." Punk's the worst politician in the world. He is so bad at playing this stuff because he takes things so personally and goes so over the top with his reactions. But like, this isn't the first time a pro wrestler has used his political power to get someone a job or to keep someone out of a job. Like the fact that WWE has ruled as the only power for so long that people really forget how things kind of used to be, right? Like, have we forgotten about the Clique and how they would just like destroy careers? Like Bam Bam Bigelow was set for a big babyface run after the Lawrence Taylor match. That never happened. Hulk Hogan got George Scott fired as the booker in 1986 in WWF. Like, this is not new. Like, this is pro wrestling. But again, it's CM Punk, so people kind of get a little bit more upset about it than anything else. So just stuff like that is wild to me. By the way, you know who took over as booker when Hulk Hogan got George Scott fired? In 86, you know who took over? Mike, you're on mute.
Hey, are we about to get fired already?
We're going to get fired already. Joe and Rich are going to be like, what do we get into with these guys?
I had to mute because my daughter was screaming down the stairs just now, but it sounds like she's done. The tantrum is over.
That's a real thing with parents, yeah.
Yeah, but please, JD, tell us who was the booker in 1986 when George Scott got fired.
Unofficially, Hogan and Tito.
Yeah, I remember that story, and I don't think that many people know about that.
No, so that people go, how can Hulk Hogan have this much power? Well, it's not unprecedented. In fact, usually the booker was the champion. Like this is wrestling. People have to stop thinking about it like you're working for Apple or something like that, or X. Like this is we're kind of overblowing this. But again, Punk does a pretty good job blowing these things up on his own. So I can't cover the guy. It's
because Punk has these little minions all over the internet that kind of like feed him shit to be mad about, Like, I guarantee he has no idea who Nick Nemeth is. Like, and then he finds out, like, why is Dolph Ziggler's little brother talking shit about me? And then let me go confront this guy backstage. And then sure enough, he did. And now Nemeth is banned from Collision. He's officially not Collider worthy.
He is not a Collider. He's not worthy of being collided. So he is now relegated to ROH on Dynamite, where, to be fair, he's steering into the skid and is having people chant "hunk" or something like that. I got to actually watch next ROH show. So kudos to AEW. Like when the Bucks are being passive aggressive, people are totally cool with it. But that's just how these things go.
Well, people identify more with passive aggressive people these days. Punk is kind of like kind of a, I don't want to say toxically masculine, but I think that's probably what more modern people would think that he is, because he's like more in your face about stuff,
He's confrontational. He's definitely more confrontational. Like on BTE, the Bucks are making jokes about, oh, now you're stuck with us, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, and then clearly that's directed at Punk, but that's okay. But again, when Punk does it, he's not funny. Right, like CM Punk is a lot of things, but he's not funny. So when he said I was trying to make jokes about Hangman, I was like, it did not sound like jokes. The key with jokes, you got to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very funny.
Nemeth being barred, I don't think is really all that important. But
No, it's
Christopher
hilarious
Daniels,
is what it is.
yeah. I think that he should just be banned from both shows. I don't think he should be allowed to be there because he's not any good. But Christopher Daniels being barred, that one surprised me because I don't know if he's the head of talent relations, but he's definitely like a guy in talent relations. He kind of helped build the company early on. And so it says Daniels was banned because he was involved with Brawl Out, and Punk is still pissed that Ace Steel was punished and Daniels wasn't. Now, Fightful Select is now reporting that Steel was either granted back pay or they were trying to work out getting him back pay from the time that he was suspended, which is wild to me because I didn't hear a single story about Christopher Daniels hitting somebody with a chair or biting a top star. I didn't hear any of that, but Punk is Punk. So Punk apparently banned Daniels. He basically confirmed that to Voices of Wrestling, but he's denying having anything to do with Matt Hardy being unbooked. And nobody really knows about Isaiah Cassidy. That might have just been a coincidence. So,
well, Isaiah Cassidy's with Hardy, so I think
he
just kind of gets lumped in there. And it's from what Dave was saying, it's like it sounds like Tony Khan has kind of gone saying, okay, if anyone's got a problem with Punk, we're just gonna keep it away. And I kind of get that because like if you were trying to keep things harmonious, you probably want to keep the people on who are going to get along with each other, right? That makes sense to me. Like, is this a bit over the top? Is this AEW 90210? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of understand. I kind of understand the reasoning behind things. Punk says he had nothing to do with the Page thing. Tony just kind of did that to kind of keep peace and get out ahead of things. Mike, you talked about that Tony Khan needs to be a better leader. It doesn't seem like he's willing to be a hatchet guy. Like they even made jokes about it this week on Dynamite. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the right way to handle this, but I also don't know if it's the wrong way to handle it either. Cause I mean, they're on eggshells until they get this $1 billion deal. And you got to do your best to try to keep everybody happy. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. And I think that $1 billion deal, I think Punk being a part of the company is attached to that, like unofficially, right? Like I think everybody thinks that he's going to be a big part of that deal. So they got to keep him happy. I get the feeling that if they lose Punk, money will go down a little bit, but they're like one or two hot angles away from rebounding, right? I don't like they have such a huge roster with so many talented and famous people. And we'll talk a little bit later that might grow coming up soon. Nobody knows. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think once they get that deal, maybe Punk will no longer have the power that he once had.
The way power ends in pro wrestling is you stop drawing. You stop being a commodity on your own. That's the one thing that you can say about Punk is that he's always kind of backed himself up. Now he's definitely put himself into a more difficult position on Collision because Collision's never going to have great ratings, right?
Yeah.
It'll have good ratings for Saturdays, and it's a tough spot, and everybody realizes it. And as we've seen, the show is stronger with him than without him. But this is wrestling, man. I mean, like I said, Hulk Hogan did this kind of stuff. Shawn Michaels done this kind of stuff. Steve Austin did this. Like top. Mm-hmm. Let's compare this to real sports too. If there's a conflict between the GM and a top star, who wins 9 times out of 10?
It depends on the top star, but it's like the GM of the Cowboys.
Should he use coach? Yeah, I should have said coach. I should have said coach.
Yeah. So it really depends on the team. So let's take the shitty Philadelphia Eagles who cheat in the NFC Championship game and hurt quarterbacks when they're not looking. Let's talk about those idiots. So if there is a confrontation between Jalen Hurts and that dipshit Sirianni, the head coach, they're gonna keep Jalen Hurts and they're gonna favor him. Now, if it's the other way around, right? Say you're Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, chances are you're gonna favor Kyle Shanahan because they feel like he's more important to the team than the success of their top star, right? Or their top star is probably like a guy like Fred Warner or George Kittle. You know what I mean? So it depends. So Chicago Bulls, if there was a big conflict between Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, I get the feeling Jackson's going bye-bye. Jackson's going to be coaching the fucking Indiana Pacers. You know what I mean?
That happened with Doug Collins.
Not going anywhere.
That's what happened. Yes. Doug Collins. Yep. Doug Collins got fired from the Bulls, and that's how Phil Jackson got brought in. I mean, this is sports. Whenever real sports mentality creeps into wrestling, people start freaking out about everything, and it drives me crazy that we can never have real conversations. People are like, oh, I want sports wrestling, but They really don't. Because whenever start people acting like athletes or acting like professional athletes who aren't just happy to be there, they got their panties all bundled up. Like, I can't do this. Like, it's so annoying. And granted, Punk himself is annoying, but I just think I find a lot of this stuff to be very overblown, to be honest with you. And a lot of it is just sniping behind people's backs.
Well, and you know what it is? And I'm not going to name anybody by name, but when this stuff was breaking, like before the story's broken, we were talking to like 2 or 3 different people that had this story. You know what I mean? Before it actually hit the airwaves. And it's because this company's leaking like a sieve. It's like worse than the Trump White House, right? Like you're just hearing stuff all the time. And they were really wanting to get this story out there. And BJ Bethel did a great job of getting it out there before everybody else. Didn't get credit, Fightful, but he did a great job of getting that out there before everybody else. But everybody had it all at the same time because people in the company were just trying to get the story out there to paint, CM Punk in a bad light. And you know what? Maybe he is a bad guy. Maybe he was being a jerk. It appears this time with Hangman Page, because the Page side, the elite side, did go above and beyond to get out that CM Punk apologized and said he had nothing to do with it. So I'm gonna call that one good. Chances are Punk really didn't have anything to do with that one. But because people thought he did, to get Page's back, instead of confronting the situation, they leaked to the media, right? They leaked to their friends in the media, hoping to be able to get the story out. And then now what do we have? These people that love their company so much, right? They leak this to the media. And now this is a bigger story than the biggest show in the history of wrestling outside of WWE in forever. This show is bigger than the Wembley show that WWE did back in 1992, right? So this is one of the biggest shows of all time, but here we are, instead of leading with these new matches for All In, we're talking about Punk's bullshit. And Punk is an asshole, right? I don't think that's
no doubt.
Nobody can deny that. But I think the guys that kind of like that were just trying so hard to get everybody to talk about the story, they didn't do their company any favors. They didn't really do a very good job. You know what I mean? But the reporters did a great job, by the way, because they this is what they do for a living. They get these stories out and they vetted it thoroughly. But that sucks that the folks, they did that. You know what I mean?
So what is your stance on an athlete wanting to go through plate glass window? How do you feel about that, Mike?
Well, speaking of 90210, CM Punk and Jungle Boy had an issue over
Jack Perry. He's Jack Perry now, not Jungle Boy.
Yeah, he's always Jungle Jack is what I'll call him. Jungle Jack, Luke Perry's kid from 90210. Apparently, he was on Collision in Canada back in June and July, and he was getting ready to take a vacation. And so he wanted to get thrown into a plate glass window that was made out of real glass. Not the sugar glass that Moxley always uses. He wanted real glass. And Punk said, keep that shit on Wednesdays, son. We ain't doing that around here. And apparently Jungle Jack threw a tantrum.
Well, that's okay. Let's be real. Crushed glass is what is used. If you watch a movie and some dude goes flying through a glass window, it's crushed glass, right? It's made with sugar. We also call it sugar glass, right? That is what is used, because real glass hurts. It's a lot thicker, right? What happened? Okay. 2000, Bill Goldberg. Remember that? He tried to break the window on the car and he cut an artery. He almost cut it. I think he did cut an artery.
He was out for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Like real glass can mess you up. It can slice through muscle. I mean, like it's really, really bad. So and I saw some people's like, oh man, Jack Perry's kind of a badass for wanting to go through real glass. No, he's really kind of dumb if that was his plan. Because you can get really honest to God, hurt for real. So I gotta favor Punk on this one. Like, is he petty? Yeah, in this case, no, I don't think so. I think he's being smart.
I think he had it right, and he wasn't the only one telling Jack not to do that. I guess like the producers and Tony Schiavone, and I guess the guy was throwing a fit, so Punk jumped in, trying to take a leadership role. But Jack is, aligned with those other guys, and so he probably wasn't taking that advice very well. And so now he's probably banned too. I don't know. Was his name on the banned list? There were so many.
I didn't see his name on the
stories
banned
that
list.
had come out. Yeah,
but it might be. I don't know. Punk and Christian get along, so Jack Perry might get longer rope than everybody else there. But I mean, like at some point, and that's part of being young, right? I'm a high school teacher, man. I teach kids. They want to do dumb shit all the time. You got to stop them from themselves at some point and say, hey, man, you could get hurt. Now, he said that like the guy was trying to get hurt so he wouldn't have to go to work. And like another point as well, he actually had a vacation coming up. Pardon me. He's like, hey, aren't we trying to build to this what's supposed to be the biggest show of all time? And people are taking vacation time when they work once, twice a week. I mean, come on, man. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna come on, man. There's a time and a place for these kind of things, especially when you're in an angle right now. So I kind of can't shit on Punk for this one.
No. So I'm not blaming him. I don't blame him for the Jungle Jack stuff. Look, now guys, we're not there in the room. So we're basing our opinions off of multiple stories that have been reported. It could have very well been that Punk was the jerk the whole time and Jungle Jack was just being a polite young gentleman. I get the feeling that's not the case though. So I'm going to go ahead and side with Punk on that one. And then the other stuff, like turns out he wasn't the one that banned Hangman Page. Nick Nemeth, I think everybody can agree that he should just be banned from all wrestling. Christopher Daniels, big time head scratcher for me. I don't think I'm with that one. So
I'm with you.
But you know what? Look, he's got a lot of control over what's going on over Collision. He wants to have like a harmonious atmosphere, like a team atmosphere. They have a different vibe on that show. It's booked way differently. They have like, badass wrestling matches. They don't have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. More on that later. But a lot of stuff going on. And our guy BJ, man, he was on it this week. He had another big story that kind of blew up a little bit. This is from BJ at the SEScoops.com. He said the AEW locker room is frustrated with all-in planning. Join the club, AEW locker room. I think we all were a little bit frustrated. He's reporting that a lot of people are upset about Wembley. That's a quote. One wrestler told him, maybe if it were just Wembley, it'd be different. But with everything that's happened over the last year, it's becoming the one major issue. People want to know if they're going to London, what the card is going to be. It's a show everyone wants to be on. It's like a WrestleMania 3 or maybe our WrestleMania 1, but there isn't any urgency and people are scared we aren't going to live up to this moment. JD, what are your thoughts on the buildup for All In? And do wrestlers have a legitimate gripe here?
What are my thoughts on the build? I mean, like, okay, this is a hot take. AEW doesn't build their shows until late in the game. They just don't. And this has been every pay-per-view cycle. And we have this conversation every pay-per-view cycle. And I think what I finally come to realize is people just want these builds. They want these shows, these TV shows, to be all about the upcoming pay-per-view. They just do. And like they say, no, I want the shows to matter more than anything. But I mean, like every week, it's like, oh, what are we building pay-per-view? Why aren't we building the pay-per-view? Why aren't we building the pay-per-view? And they are building the pay-per-view. They just don't tell you. Like they never said, like they started building the main event. I was there in Chicago last time they came through Chicago when they announced the thank you, Sam. Like, and they announced the what do you call it? The Battle Bowl. I forget what they call Battle Bowl, right? Their version of it.
What AEW? It was like the
blind, what was AEW called? The blind. Yeah,
it was the blind eliminator tournament.
That's
stupid.
what it was.
But go ahead.
Yeah, it was stupid. But to be fair, everyone shit on when they did the whole thing with MJF and Cole, and I did too. I was like, oh, this is gonna be dumb. It worked. It's the hottest thing in the company right now. That was in June. That was in June. So they've been building the main event for this show since June, right?
Yeah.
But they just didn't say this is what the main event is going to be. They do a different approach. They let things kind of play out. And I just think that wrestling fans just want to be told this is what it's going to be, rather than letting it evolve before their eyes. Now, has every match in the undercard been developed like that? No, but it's the fucking undercard. The main event is
a lot of those are booked this week because they involve people that had been in Japan as part of the G1. And so they not everybody, but Eddie Kingston, Will Ospreay, and some of these other cats, they were not, available for the show. So they waited till this week to start the build for them. And then I think they had some ideas that had fallen through, and then they kind of rearranged a little bit. I've heard the All-In card has been written and rewritten a few times, which happens on these big shows. And it looks like they're trying to get everybody on the show, which is why we're getting a trios match with Kenny Omega instead of just Kenny Omega versus Takeshita, because they are literally trying to get everybody on the card. So it's like, to a lot of fans' frustration, but I don't quite understand the fan frustration. I think fans can be a little bit too smart for their own good. I think they're like, hey, look, if I were promoting this is what I would do. You're not promoting it. You know what I mean? It's not your cash. You're probably going to watch anyway. So I don't really I don't really see their point, right? But the wrestlers, you got to know if you're going to London that weekend. That's a big
I
trip,
get that.
right? You know what I mean? So like, and I look at it from my perspective. There's been times where I thought I was booked for like a training thing. I was like, okay, the Air Force is going to send me here, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting for confirmation. And then I don't get confirmation until like a week out. And now I have to rearrange my whole schedule. I got to, confirm with my wife, and if it's like a trip that's kind of, close by, can I bring my family to it? Can we book a bigger hotel? Do I need to get a rental car? Do I need to, you know what I mean? So like, it becomes like a bigger deal. So I get the wrestler frustration, and I'm kind of on their side.
Yeah,
if
I get
a
that.
lot of them don't know whether or not they're going to London, I think that's an issue, and that's something that they need to get a grasp on. And Tony has to just do a better job of making sure that they have better communication up and down the chain of command there in AEW. I just my commander that I have right now, he just came from I think he was in Nebraska. He said you want to get the water all the way down to the back of the row, right? If you're doing crops, you want to make sure the water flows all the way back to the back of the row. And that's the same way with communication, right? So when you're at the top, you need to make sure that your communication is flowing all the way down to the lowest level, to where everybody has like a clear idea of what's going to happen. And it doesn't appear that that's happening in AEW, and people are frustrated because of it.
No, and I get that. But at the same time, if you're featured on TV every week and you're in an ongoing storyline, there's a good chance you're going to be on the show. Hey, Dave, this is my guy from Superhero Speak. Thanks for helping out. Dave gave us a huge assist with actually getting this going. This is our own live stream. Where the Mike and JD show is officially partnered up with Superhero Speak, my other podcast, getting this live stream going. Thanks, my man. Appreciate that. Now,
thanks, David.
Yeah, as you were saying, Mike, I think that if you're a wrestler, if you're on the show every single week and you're doing something, there's a pretty good chance you're going. But I think a lot of the people are the ones who are kind of on the bubble who aren't as active. So I think they just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, I want you to go back to the WrestleMania 3 show and tell me how many of those undercard matches were a big part of WWF television in 1987. You'll surprise yourself.
Yeah.
So,
wait, JD, are you telling me right now, are you sitting here and telling me King Kong Bundy was not feuding with those little guys the entire year and the build up to their big match at WrestleMania 3?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. I will tell you also, what's funny too? Do you know who Hogan was feuding with Andre on TV, right? But that was like a short build too. Like that wasn't like months and months and months of build. Like they kind of made that kind of happen like fairly quick especially in terms of mid 80s WWF television. Hogan was feuding with Kamala. And Kamala's not on that show. Hogan was selling out buildings with Kamala literally across the country before WrestleMania 3. And that dude was nowhere to be seen. Now, the rumor has always been that, like, well, they kept Kamala on ice in case Andre couldn't go. Then they would have something to fall back on. That would have been a huge disappointment, by the way.
Yes, yeah.
But, like, this happens, man, and it sucks. Believe me, if you're a wrestler, I get it. But if you're a fan and you want, because this is the truth, fans want everybody on these shows, but they don't want 4-hour shows, right? We want everybody, all our favorites. We want all our favorites on the show, but we don't want to watch it for 4 hours. So what's the solution? We're gonna get some tag matches, right?
Yeah. We want all of our wrestlers to get booked.
Right.
But we don't want them booked in multiple person matches because that's lame. We don't want them booked in battle royals, but we also don't want a 4.5-hour pay-per-view. So we don't know what we want.
That's exactly what it is. But they but to be fair, they just know it's not what they're seeing. And I understand that. Larry, our good friend Larry Sternshine, got a good comment. The problem with AEW fans, they spend too much time fantasy booking, and if they don't get what they had in their head, they complain. That's true. Same thing happens with comic fans, movie fans. I'd say sports fans too. Like every sports fan is a better coach than the guys that are actually doing the job.
I'm telling you right now, I've been trying to book the 49ers lineup right now, and if Shanahan goes against the lineup that I have presented to him on the internet, I'm going to be pissed. So
because you know better. That's just how it goes.
I'm 40 and I've been an expert for 40 years. I know this stuff. I've been a football watcher my whole. I was on the Exeter Union High School practice squad circa 1999. I know what I'm talking about, guys.
See,
and
I
then
wasn't. I was an all-state football player, and I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know shit about football. I couldn't tell you anything. I coached football in high school for 1 year, and I sat there shrugging my shoulders. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, or what you expect
Yeah.
from me. So I
Yeah.
have not a hard time swallowing my ego. Our good buddy Dr. Preet, boys, just joining
Dr.
us.
Preet.
I'm so happy to see you two get your opportunity to shine. For your information, Mike, tonight's Y Files was the first boring one in forever. Dude, Mike sent me a screenshot because we were talking about lighting before the show of the Y Files for the first. I had no idea what this show is. I don't know
You've
what
never
that
seen
dude
the
is.
Y Files?
I've never even heard of it.
Dude,
what is the Y Files?
Okay. Well, so UFOs, conspiracies, Mothman, aliens, ghosts, shadow people, CIA, MK Ultra, Operation Minced Meat, everything that you can imagine in like 30 to 45-minute episode. This guy does it all. And Dr. Preet, the Love Doctor, Doctor of Thugonomics, Preet, he turned me on to that show. I watch it religiously every single week. It's free on YouTube, and the guy does a great job. And he has like a little goldfish that heckles him during the show, and it's pretty funny. He does
what?
Yeah, it's a little goldfish that's like floating there, but it's got like a fake, like his mouth like comes through it, and then like it starts like heckling him during. It's called Hecklefish. I can't recommend that show enough. It's like addicting.
Like David and Goliath, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Dude, it's pretty good, and they go into some really off the wall stories. I love that show. I was actually watching his Q&A a little bit on Twitter tonight, waiting for this show, and I was like, oh wow, that guy's lighting is great. So now I got to go try to copy his lighting.
He does a good lighting job. Like I was pretty impressed when you showed that to me. So yeah, he was cool. I don't know what the hell we're talking about anymore. We got off on our one tangent.
Yeah, we were just talking about All In and the frustration with the locker room, and I think the wrestlers have a gripe. I think the fans need to chill out a little bit. This is still going to be probably the biggest event of all time, and plus they got All Out that's a week later, so they do have to save a little bit for All Out. And they have to sell both pay-per-views, which I think is kind of a mistake by AEW trying to do two pay-per-views back to back like that. So
huge. I've been very vocal about that. I'm not a big complainer fan, but I don't like spending money. I'm pretty cheap. So notoriously, I don't think this was meant to be two pay-per-views back-to-back weeks. Because the only time
I don't think so either.
Right, Tuesday in Texas. It's the only time that ever happened before, and that was kind of a disaster. So, and that's the thing. People want all the big matches for London. Well, I want this big match in Wembley. Well, I got tickets to All Out in Chicago. I want something good too, man. So, God, you guys are getting Cole versus MJF. Let us get Kenny and Takeshita, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it looks like JD.
Mistake.
I think the flagship just ended. So hold on. The flagship just ended because let the VOW flagship migration begin. So everybody that was watching the flagship, welcome to the Mike and JD show. Welcome, Lee. And then of course our new bosses, our very handsome, sex-having and grass-touching bosses, Rich and Joe. Thank you guys. Welcome to the network, guys. Have a great show. I'm exhausted from the flagship. I bet you are. Go get into some boner jams, my friends. We will hold it down right here on the Voices of Wrestling Network. But yeah, sorry, but yeah, I think that the AEW roster has a great, but everybody else needs to just chill out. And I think both shows are going to be awesome. I am not looking forward to spending money. And newsflash, guys, I will have a link ready to go, so I will not be buying either one.
See, we got a lot more people paying attention to us now. So you got to be a little more careful about how when you brag about how you choose to partake in these shows. We talked about people like not being happy with booking and stuff like that. I don't know if you looked at your phone, but we just got a text from our good buddy John Muse. Mike and I literally talk to John Muse every day. He just watched Impact. I like talking to John because John doesn't just think about things from a fan perspective, because the fan just wants to go A game everything all the time. Like Godzilla says,
A game. A
game. You can't do that. Like, it's just not possible. So I like sitting back and I like talking to John, because again, I tend to look at these things from a literary perspective. I'm a writer, right? I think about this. Well, what's character A doing? What's his motivation? What's the story? Blah, blah, blah. John will sit there and talk to me about things from like, how does this work with this? Where are you going with that? Is this possible here? Like, he thinks about things like a guy who's actually booked wrestling, because spoiler alert, he actually has booked wrestling. Yeah. So I tend to take his criticisms for stuff, and there's times where he's like, I don't know if this stuff works for me, not just AEW, but just like, we'll talk about Impact sometimes, we'll talk about WWE. So like when John has things to say, I'll sit back and just shut my mouth and listen. And his stuff tends to make more sense because I hate going into like Twitter or Discord channels, and it's just fantasy booking and people getting an idea of in their own head of what something should be and not understanding why it can't be that, and then getting mad, right? It's like being mad. It's like going to see The Dark Knight and being mad that they didn't use the Batman villain that you wanted. So now you hate the movie.
Yeah. Well, wrestling fans want pro wrestling to be a choose your own adventure story, and sorry guys, it just isn't that, a lot of times. Sometimes it can be that, but for the most part, it's just not.
And choose your own adventure stories suck. Like there's never been a good one. No, there's never been a good one. There's never been a good choose your own adventure story. They're all bad. Always. Yeah. So yeah. More on John Muse later, because he gave me a good little note when we get to the Texas Chainsaw thing.
Okay. All right. Diego, welcome to the show, my buddy. He's been a big supporter of ours for a long time. Dakota says, feels like one of these shows was supposed to happen on Max. Yeah, you know what? I think so too. Yeah, and then Max said that Max said that they didn't have that capability, but they do now apparently. So just like a little bit too little too late. They didn't really have all their ducks in a row before they booked it. And sometimes them's the breaks, you know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it happened. And then Boner Jams, that was never discussed. That's Rich. So
there we go. Now we're fired.
Yeah, we already got in trouble. Sorry, guys.
Damn.
And then actually WWE had back-to-back week PLEs during the pandemic. That's how we're okay. So that's a little bit different because you're getting that on the WWE Network and Peacock. You weren't paying $50. It's $5. I think I'm paying $11.99 now or something like that. So a little bit different. But I see where you were going with that.
You're asking me for $100 for two shows, right? Or is it 120? I forget if it's 60 or 50 bucks.
It's $50 a show domestically, and then I think overseas in some markets it's 40, and then some markets it's like 25, depending on the country. But
I bought tickets, so it's even worse for me. I mean, they're asking, it's a big ask. Yes. Right? It's a big ask. I think they're gonna wind up regretting the second show. I really do. I think the first show could work. The second one, I'm not sure.
You know what? One of them can suffer, or both could suffer. Because people might pick and choose, and the all in is actually going to be earlier on Saturday, like during the day. Thankfully there's no college football on, so there's not going to be a ton of competition on television, but I'm going to tell you right now, like there's a competition at my house because I got to go take my wife and kid out to do shit during the day. So like, it's really difficult. You know what I mean?
What time is it starting in Honolulu?
So John Muse texted me and said to set my alarm because I believe that Adam Cole and MJF is set to come on at 6 a.m. But I'll be up. I'm an early riser, so I'll get up at 5.
The main event, Adam Cole, MJF, the tag team match.
The tag team match. So the beginning. Okay. So 0 hour will be at 6 a.m. Honolulu time. Because I'm 6 hours behind the East Coast right now. I'm 5 hours behind you. So right now here in Honolulu, it's 6:11 p.m. So. Yeah. So thank you for staying up all night with us, folks. It's still daylight where I'm at.
I hate you so much.
Hey, for everybody that just left the flagship, I know you probably came here hoping to get more AEW talk. We will have more AEW talk a little bit later, but right now we got to get into a little bit of WWE talk because Edge, Adam Copeland himself, Sexton Hardcastle, he appears to be finishing up with WWE. He's got a match coming up against Sheamus, and apparently that's the last one on his contract. And there's some rumors out there that AEW might be in play here.
I wouldn't. So this is one of these things, right, where people get something in their head, and then if it doesn't happen, they get disappointed. Right? Yeah. This dude is currently still employed by WWE, but there are fans somewhere that have already decided that Adam Copeland will be debuting in Wembley Stadium, and I don't even know if that's possible.
Yeah, right. I don't know what the contract looks like.
Yeah, nor do I. I mean, like, he won't have a 90-day sit out because the contract is expired. Dude is 50. He is in good shape. And now people are like, I think people are down on the work, but I also wonder how much that is what is just WWE work style, right? Yeah. Especially with WWE work style, with what's expected from a guy that age. Like, I don't know, man. I think I got a softer spot for Edge than most people. Like, I would be.
Yeah. Hey,
JD, I would be super curious. What's wrong?
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold on. I got heat with one Suit Williams. So yes, it's Voices of Wrestling up
Up.
all night. Yes, thank you for the reference. But hold on, Jenny Garth suit. He says, "Where's Jenny Garth?" Whoever hosts
Rhonda Shear,
it
man.
was Rhonda Shear. What are you doing, suit?
Oh, dude, you know who just died reading that? Garrett Gonzalez.
Oh,
That
I
just
know,
killed
yeah.
him. Somewhere, I don't even know if Garrett's up watching, but somewhere his heart hurts and he doesn't know why.
Yeah, because Jenny Garth that was the chick from 90210, right? Or was that Melrose Place?
No. It's now 2-0. I know Jenny Garth was now 2-0.
90210.
Please don't ask me the character name. I did not watch the show,
Yeah,
but I know for a fact.
I'm sure somebody in the chat is a 90210 fanatic. I happen to not be. So finish what you were saying. So Edge,
Oh yeah,
it might not be possible that he can show up at All In, but people are already fantasy booking that.
People are fantasy booking it. I don't know. Maybe Edge and Christian doing some dickery together might be interesting. It could be a big moment. Like, we have a buddy who'll go nameless who said, what would be a good thing is if you have Adam Cole and MJF win the ROH titles, and then as the 0 hour is ending, Edge or Adam Copeland or whoever steps out of a car.
Yeah.
And that would be a nice thing. We'll go nameless, but I'm like, that's a good idea. I like that idea. So maybe that's something. I'm not going to get mad if it doesn't happen because again, that's a good chance that that's not reality. But
right,
it's
just
cool
people
idea.
that are like fantasy booking. So some people will then manifest that as like, oh, AEW is leaking this, so it must be happening. Well, that's not really the case.
No,
that's just you creating an expectation that you're holding the company to that they don't even know about yet, that they didn't agree to. Right. We do that with people in our lives. A lot of times we have expectations for them they don't meet. They didn't know about it, not their obligation to meet it. That's kind of what's happening there. But if Edge does come in to AEW, does he go by Adam Copeland or does he just pick another U2 name? Does he go Bono or maybe Larry Mullen, the drummer? What are we doing here? What do we think?
I've been sitting on that joke all day.
I told the joke earlier. You guys fucking laughed
because I heard it 6 hours ago, so I was ready for it now.
I was workshopping it in the chat, so
yeah, I don't know. I think he's or does he become Sexton Hardcastle again?
I think that would be cool. Speaking of no longer with WWE, it looks like Lacey Evans is gone. She was the Marine chick. She's around for a little bit. She got so many starts and stops. I don't think that they ever really like it seemed like they were getting fully behind her, then they would just pull the plug, and then they would get behind her, then they would pull the plug. Some rumors are out there as to why that might be. I'm not really qualified to get into that. Yeah, we ain't gonna touch that. Nope. They don't pay us enough for that. But it looks like she's gone. People are saying that maybe Impact would be interested in her, man. I don't think so. I think it's only a matter of time before she's like slinging pics of her fallopian tubes on the internet. I don't know what's going on with that one. I think she's already I think she's even starting up a diner or something too.
That's a weird one. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, at no point have I ever woken up in the middle of the night and looked at myself and been, God damn it, I need to open a Waffle House. Like, that's never entered my imagination at all. They had a lot of, when you look at her, she's got like the Vince McMahon thing written all over her, right?
Yeah.
Attractive, blonde, what seems to be
all American.
Yeah. And
people are saying that she might be pro-Trump or something like that, just kind of like Vince McMahon's like idea of what a wrestler is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Just didn't work. Truth be told, I thought the Slaughter idea was kind of good.
I kind of dug it because
me too.
Slaughter was catching heat because he was never actually military, which, by the way, like a lot of people are coming after that guy. I've watched so many movies and none of those actors are ever in the military. Does not bother me. No. People are like, Mike, you're in the military. What do you think? Don't give a fuck. I like Sergeant Slaughter. Most of us do.
Yeah. These are not real people. Sergeant Slaughter is a fictional character. He also did not serve in G.I. Joe. This might shock you to know that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I thought I'm like, this has potential because the Slaughter gimmick, I think, could still work today. Like, I'm sure you had a drill sergeant at some point that you probably didn't like. I'm imagining, right? Or did I make that up in my head?
No. I had this guy. He was like 6'4", super fit, and for whatever reason, he had the super long fingernails, and he would get right up into your face, and he would like knife hand you right in your face, and like his fingernails would get so close to your eye, you're thinking he's about to claw your eyes out. It was the weirdest thing, and he would say all this awful shit to us. I don't know if he got in trouble for doing that, but he eventually, like in like week 5, he had gotten replaced because people can make all the jokes they want in the Air Force. It is a bit kinder and softer. And so we had a guy come in like in week 5, and he was very nice to us. He was great.
I'm blown away.
The original guy.
I'm blown away. He was allowed to have like long, like Freddy Krueger fingers. That blows
honestly,
my mind.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm a master sergeant now, and if I see people with like super long fingernails that look unnatural, like I gotta like, hey, you need to go take care of that. You're out of regs. But this dude, for whatever reason, I just remember him having super long fingernails.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I was saying, I think the Slaughter gimmick could work. Suit Williams in the chat just said get her in AAA with Sam Adonis, Conan Booker. Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Right.
So, but here's the thing with someone like Lacey Evans, right? She has a lot of other qualities. She don't need to take bumps the rest of her life. She can have a really sustainable income without ever taking another bump. And I just see her, and she was never a person that worked indies before. Like, she didn't come up through the ranks. She went straight over there. She doesn't appear to be somebody there's like a hardcore wrestling fan. I just don't, if you told her what AAA was, she probably wouldn't even know. And I could be wrong about that. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope she, is a huge wrestling fan and is willing to go hustle on the indies. I just don't see it.
I got a buddy who works who's in the PC, no names. He was talking about, because I asked him about the injury, right? And he's like, nobody here really knows how to train. Like, they've never trained like athletes. Like, we have a lot of people that, like to work out, but don't really know how to train. And he says a lot of people here really aren't wrestling fans. So if WWE doesn't work out, they're like, well, WWE didn't work out. I guess this isn't for me, which is why you see so many times on Twitter, do you see the guy post, "You're not heard the last of me," and you never hear it, again, like, you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
So, I could see her being one of those. I would be more surprised if, like, I would be surprised. I don't know, maybe not Court Bauer. Court Bauer seems to, be the weird wrestler whisperer, right? So I guess anything is possible, but I think I'd be more surprised to see her fall back into pro wrestling, because quite frankly, it doesn't seem to have worked out for her.
No. Hold on. Our old bosses are here. Yeah. So I can't believe Suit said Jenny Garth. That's from the fight game.
That would be Garrett.
That would be Garrett. Yes.
I told you. That's why he came in, because he felt it. He was like, something is wrong with my heart. I need to check on Mike and JD right now. And then,
well, if anyone at any time, anywhere in the world is talking shit about 90210, Garrett's going to find out about it and come get on the attack. So
everyone should have someone as loyal to them in their life as Garrett is 90210.
So she's going to go by Macy Estrella from here on out. So there you go. So good. Cool. I guess good luck, Lacey Evans. We'll see where she ends up. I just don't see Indies or Impact or AEW or anything like that. So who knows what she's going to be up to, man. Speaking of guys who left WWE and never made it, Enzo Amore.
What is this?
Dude, Enzo Amore got himself booked in New Japan at the All-Star Junior Festival this weekend. And he stated in an interview, I don't know who he was talking to. I am not a real journalist. I didn't look that part up, but he stated, I'll end up at the Tokyo Dome if I get the chance to do what I do in New Japan. So is he going to go clean the bathroom floors? What's he going to do in the Tokyo Dome?
I'm absolutely flabbergasted by this remark, especially as a junior heavyweight, right? Yeah. Enzo Amore,
former WWE Cruiserweight champion.
Stop it.
He defeated Pac. He kicked Pac's ass. Honestly, he beat the shit out of Pac. Pac was a jump compared to. I'm just
kidding. Don't just stop. But okay, so this guy's been like persona non grata for years. Do you remember at the Madison Square Garden show when the two of them showed up and the whole crowd went, "Oh, this fucking sucks," and they just took a giant shit on it, and
rightfully so.
What? How did this happen? I assume this has to be Rocky Romero, right?
I don't know that he
Wow.
books all the US shows, but I've heard that. So I mean, it makes sense. Like Rock, I don't know. Like, does Enzo's got friends in places though? Like the guy keeps getting booked on all these
He
indie shows. He was just
does.
an He was just an MLW. Newsflash, shocker, that didn't work out.
Yeah, but I said he could whisper to the weird wrestlers. I didn't say he made them all work. I mean, like Court Bauer does have a good reputation for like rehabilitating some careers, low key being probably the best example of it. But just I can't I struggle even putting this into words because I can't imagine what Enzo, a real one, whatever he's calling himself these days, is like on a New Japan show. Like, what does he do? Like, how does this work? Because he's not a good worker. He's not a good bumper. Like, he can talk, but I mean, it's New
But
Japan.
his act was stale a long time ago.
5 years ago.
So, dude, so when MLW went to Reels, I actually I gave it a shot because I had a friend that worked at I still have a friend that works at Reels, and he was excited about it. And me and him were texting about it, and I wanted to support Reels and I wanted to support my friend. So I went ahead and kicked on MLW on Reels to check the show out. And the first 30 minutes of that show was Enzo Amore trying to do his WWE shtick in front of about 125 people that did not care. And of course, the crowd was mic'd so poorly you couldn't really hear anything. And then you had Joe Dombrowski doing his commentary. Joe's great, but then you had Matt Stryker doing commentary in his bathroom. The whole thing was all over the place, and I never picked it back up. I never watched MLW again. But he was so awful on that show. I can't imagine somebody from New Japan watching that and being like, you know what? We need that guy on our show. That's a guy that we need to have.
When they tried to book Marty Skrull, I mean, at least that guy could have good matches. Hey, John Muse, nothing.
John,
He does nothing
yeah.
but talk, and doesn't even talk
Yeah.
that well.
No, I mean he used to talk pretty well. Like I'll be honest, like when he was in NXT, and I went to the I went to the famed pre-WrestleMania NXT show that was in San Jose. And he was on that him and Big Cass, who I'm actually a big fan of the new Big Cass, W Morrissey and Impact. What's his name? Big Bill now.
Big Bill.
I didn't like Big Cass as a wrestler, but when he was in Impact, I really liked him there, and I like what he's doing now with the Cage Tag Team. But him and Big Cass, they were like next to Charlotte, I would say, probably the stars of that show. Like they just had the crowd, and we were just sold out, and everybody was going crazy, just singing right along with that guy. And then when he got to the main roster, he was over for like a summer, and then everybody backstage was soured on the guy. And then they realized, okay, unless he's doing that shtick at the beginning of the match, he doesn't really have anything else to offer, and that shtick is going to grow old over time. You can't keep doing that week after week after week because then you have nothing left. Think Road Dogg, right? He had the same act as Road Dogg, except Road Dogg was from the Armstrong family, could work a little bit better than Enzo Amore. But after a while, even that shtick got old, and so they would have to kick him out. Like he would have to go away for a while and come back repackaged, go away for a while, come back with Raw the Truth Killings as a tag team partner, go away for a while. He went to TNA and then he came back. So like it was the same thing. I just don't see the value in bringing this guy into it, and then he's just doing a trios match. But I just don't get it.
It's been like 6 years, right, since he's been relevant. 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
I just don't. This is like mind-boggling. Like New Japan does some weird stuff from time to time, but this is just one. Like I can't even make jokes. I'm so confused by it. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, John Muse. Wait, should I debut the button?
Debut the button. Yeah, debut the button.
Breaking news.
You know what, the move over to the new network, we really should have changed that from brace for impact.
it still says brace for impact. That's fantastic.
Haven't been braced for impact in months, but it's still breaking news.
John Muse, breaking news. Border City Wrestling announced that Kaito Kiyomiya will be appearing in Windsor for BCW's 30th anniversary show on October 7th. That's pretty cool. Scott D'Amore owns that. Maybe Impact will get some dates on Kaito. That would be cool.
I would like to see Impact do some work with Noah. Hey, Justin, let's get on that. So,
Yeah.
not that he has any control. Yeah, that's cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I dig that. So that's pretty cool. Thank you for sharing that, John Muse. Got a couple more topics, and then we're gonna say sayonara for tonight. Dark Side of the Ring looking for new episode ideas, and I mean they got to do the fall of TNA, right? I mean we've been listening to the Lapsed Fan, Total Nonstop Hogan. They got to start Hogan, get into Dixie losing the Spike TV deal, then getting kicked off of Destination America. Billy Corgan comes in, they get the big lawsuit going, and then a positive outcome, they get bought by Anthem, and then they this year is like one of their biggest money years they've had forever. So I mean, they got to do the fall of TNA, and then with a positive story that Impact was created out of that, right?
Sure, I can't do another Vince Russo Dark Side of the Ring. Like it's just more. It's just more, but you can't leave Russo out because his dumbass sending emails is what not really ruined it, but I mean, like it was already ruined. But I mean, like his dipshit ass sending emails is kind of what got this whole thing started, right? So you have to have Vince Russo's bro version of the story, right?
And then saying, "Bro, I don't understand. The ratings were up, bro, and they still canceled us. They don't know what they're doing over there." Yes, the creators of Yellowstone don't know what they're doing. Don't know how to produce great television. But I mean, I think that story needs to be told, and I think those are probably the guys that need to tell it. Unfortunately, they can't tell that story well enough in 40 minutes. It's got to be a two-parter. Like they really need to go in depth. They got to bring. I mean, Russo's got to be a part of it. Dixie's got to be a part of it. Jeff, Eric Bischoff.
You got to get the
Hogan
Harris.
Would never do it, but yeah,
you got to get the Harris twins involved because the whole thing with Aerolux.
Yeah,
right. You need
Corgan.
Billy. Like I mean, honest to God, it's a great story. I've always said that there's a great TNA book that someone needs to write. I think you said someone's working on it, but that might have been a while ago. Like, I don't know if I want to see because Dark Side is so like over sensationalized, right? Like it's a Dark Side thing. Suit says I watched that Bash Beat episode and I wanted to strangle Russo.
Yeah.
You sound like Jim Cornette.
Yeah. I agree. I watched that Bash episode, and yes, he was insufferable. Absolutely.
He is one of the most in professional wrestling, a place where there are quite a few questionable characters. He might be the least likable person who hasn't killed anybody in pro wrestling.
Yeah. He hasn't killed people, but he's definitely killed companies.
He's
WCW and TNA being
TNA.
He wasn't the sole reason, but he was a big part of why both those companies failed. And I'm separating TNA from Impact because yes, Impact bought it from the ashes and they're doing a great job. They're kind of on an upward trajectory right now. So I separate those two companies. So he absolutely helped kill TNA.
Oh yeah. First of all, he helped name TNA, right? The fact that we had to call a company TNA Wrestling. Like, it was so embarrassing when I would tell, what are you going home and watch tonight? TNA Wrestling. You're going to watch what? Like, God, you get those looks from people like, oh, you watch that kind of wrestling? You are a complete scuzzbag. And then you have to go.
Well, and he also had Puppet masturbating in a trash can, right? Like
whack it off in a trash can.
Yeah, I didn't upload that clip. That clip is coming back to the show. I just don't know if we can use it live on YouTube. I'm afraid.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's an actual TNA clip. I'm afraid that we might get in trouble for that, so I didn't upload it yet.
I'm not sure about that.
We'll figure that out. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Is it a hot take to say that I'm kind of over Dark Side of the Ring? Like I think they really peaked with the Owen episode, and I don't find myself enjoying them as much.
I liked the Bash episode this year. I liked the Matt Bourne episode because I didn't know much about his story.
Fair.
And
okay.
I like documentaries that I actually learn from. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you. I think that the Owen Hart one was absolutely the best because not only did I learn, I actually got to get to know through their show his kids a little bit. And that was something that we never had. We got to know Martha Hart, right? Like it was about them being able to tell their story, and I just thought that was tremendous because they just disconnected themselves from the pro wrestling scene since his death, and so I thought that was great, that part of it. But the thing is, so they're looking for more ideas. I thought the TNA one. I do agree with you. They kind of have jumped the shark a little bit, but there's a few more stories to tell. But some of the stories that I want them to tell besides TNA, I just don't think they could actually tell well. Because I would like to see Gorgeous George. I'm just fascinated by him.
Yeah,
Or Gorgeous George book. I would like to see a Ricky Dozen.
I was gonna say Ricky Dozen.
That I think that would be great. But a lot of the people that were alive when Ricky Dozen got killed are no longer here. You know what I mean?
No, you could talk to like Dave and Fumi and those guys. Like you can get that.
Yeah.
You can do the reenactment. See what I'd rather see? I'd rather see like a real documentary.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather see an actual documentary about these kind of things. Because these dark side things are just like, it's like watching hard copy from when we were kids, right?
Yes.
With
Yeah.
the
You know
shitty
what?
reenactments and like it's overly dramatic and like
Mhm.
sleazy. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. We'll go to the chat. Richard Carlson says it feels like they're not brave anymore. There was so much meat on the bone in the Candido episode that they didn't even touch. I think
I
that
agree.
show would have been way more uncomfortable. And he says Ken Burns Pro Wrestling. Okay. So I've been wanting Ken Burns Ken Burns is my favorite of all time,
Ditto.
right? I pay Amazon a monthly fee just so I have access to Ken Burns' library, right? I'm that guy. I think if somebody did a pro wrestling documentary, just like how Ken Burns did the country music one or the Civil War doc or baseball, if they just did it from the 1800s through like to the 80s or something like that, I think that would be fucking tremendous.
I would, again, this is my degree, documentary filmmaking. Like Ken Burns is what we studied. I think that there is a great story in Hackenschmidt and God, I just drew a blank.
Gotch.
Hackenschmidt and Gotch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amateur wrestling. I can't remember Frank Gotch. Yeah, I think there's a great story in that one, and the big fight at Comiskey Park, and like, because I had people, amateur wrestling people for years that were convinced that it was a legitimate fight. I had the guys who ran the museum in Cedar Falls, Iowa, telling me, "Oh no, that fight was real." And like, I remember emailing Dave about this, like in the mid 2000s. He's like, "No, absolutely, it was a fake." And I'm like, "Okay, there's a story there." And the problem is WWE has so much control of the footage. Like they don't have like the old Fred Kohler stuff, and so much before it doesn't exist, right? Like there's just not a lot of footage from anything before Fred Kohler, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, like,
but Dark
hard.
Side and DDP did this, and the $1 Million Man documentary did this. They were able to do a fair use thing for kind of like news stories. You know what I mean? So they could do it that way.
They could.
But I think you're right. They could start with Gotch and Hackenschmidt, then work up to the Gold Dust Trio, right? And then you get Ed Strangler Lewis, and then you go through to the what was the Barnums of Bounce? What was it? Matt or what? I can't remember the name of the book, but I read the book. It's from like the 1930s.
Oh, I got it. It's
Muse will remind me of it.
Fall Guys, the Fall Guys.
Fall Guys, yes, the Barnums of Bounce, right? So they have some of that. I know that there was another one, kind of an updated version that actually told like different sides of it because it was told through the lens of one person. But you got Jim Londos up through like the creation of the NWA, and
I think that's where you finish it. I think you could do a documentary like Civil War style, like start with Hackenschmidt and Gotch, right? Because that's the Greco versus the catch as catch can guy, which is really it's funny because like pro wrestling and amateur wrestling really in this country really have the same root. Like they come from that particular fight. Gotch got super famous in this country where he was one of the biggest athletes in the United States in that era. And it was really on the back of that fight, which is why amateur wrestling became a popular sport in the US. Why high schools and colleges adopted amateur wrestling was because of Frank Gotch, because of how popular it was. So I've always been fascinated with the split that happens from there, literally from that moment. So I think that's one of the most important seminal moments in pro wrestling history. And then you go through the foundation of the NWA.
Yeah, and then you gotta cover Gorgeous George too, of course,
because he's part of that.
He's part of that. But then, of course, the golden era of the 50s when they were like the hottest thing on television, right? Where Gorgeous George was one of the biggest celebrities in the entire country. And then go through the 60s. I just don't think you can tell the story of pro wrestling without, going into the boom of the 80s. You'd have to do like a part 2 or something like that.
But that's why you got to have it Ken Burns talk, because Ken Burns doesn't do like a 1 hour documentary. He does these like chaptered things, right? So you have like a chapter of this and a chapter of that, and you can go. Yeah.
Did you watch the country music one?
No, I didn't watch the country music.
Dude, I honestly, I couldn't stand country music. I hated country music my whole life, but it's Ken Burns.
It is. So
it's Ken Burns. I watched that thing. Next thing you know, I got a country music playlist on my Spotify.
And that's what happened.
You know what I mean?
It's a gateway drug.
He sucks you in. He does. He sucks you. And so, and now I'm like listening to Chris Stapleton, I'm just like, dude, I'm telling you, I don't know what it was, but that documentary switched me around. But anyway, he starts off at the Civil War era, like the creation of country music, how the guitar was brought to America. Right. And then goes up through the early 1900s, all the way through like, then into the 50s with Hank Williams, the 60s, with Johnny Cash, those guys, 70s with Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and those cats, 80s, and then of course 90s with Garth Brooks. And he finishes it in the 2000s, and he does it in like 7-8 episodes. And it was just tremendous. One of the best things I've ever seen. It was so damn good. A guy that hated country music most of his whole life started listening to country music every now and then. I'm still not a big country guy, but like I grew more of appreciation for what it is.
Yeah, that sounds like human growth. I'm not interested in that.
Oh gosh. So guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it right there. So if you want more of this content, JD and I are gonna do some overtime. So head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. We're gonna keep the conversation going over there with overtime with Mike and JD. And next week, we're going to be right back here on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube network. We're also on the Voices of Wrestling feed. So if you subscribe to Voices of Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be on that feed. But also search out the Mike and JD show feed that's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Amazon and Google and all those other places. I think that's probably where JD and I will get the most ad money is if you download our regular feed. Download them all, and then plus subscribe to Patreon.
Subscribe to. Here's what you got to do. You got to subscribe to the Voices of Wrestling network.
Yeah,
you get all the great shows. You get the flagship. You get Music of the Mat. You're gonna get Shake Them Ropes. You get all the good stuff, right?
Yeah,
I like the shows on the network. Then you got to subscribe to the Mike and JD show, so you get it doubled up, and then you got to set your phone to automatically download, so we get credit for double the amount of downloads. You're not actually listen to them both, pick and choose, but you got to help us out and subscribe to both. And then subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to the Voices Wrestling YouTube, subscribe to the Mike and JD YouTube, and then go to the Patreon. So we're asking a lot.
We're asking a lot.
We just lost a couple viewers.
yeah. We're asking a lot. But thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you, John Muse and Richard and Samantha Shipman. Samantha, who still has yet to watch Can't Buy Me Love, by the way.
That's bullshit. Come on, Sam. Yeah. I've been bugging you about this for months now. You have to watch.
She's in the chat trying to get JD to listen to country music, but she won't watch Can't Buy Me Love with Patrick Dempsey.
All right, I'm bad at this, so I'll make a deal.
Hold on.
Sam, I know you're paying attention. So I want to make a deal. If you watch Can't Buy Me Love and come on our Patreon to help review it with us, I will listen to a country music playlist of your choice.
Ooh, Dixie Chicks. Sorry, I'm not good. I'm not being a good.
Are you Sam? I'm not talking to you right now. So that is the deal I'm willing to cut with you. If you finally watch this movie and review it with us on the Patreon, I will listen to whatever god off country music playlist you have for me, and I will suffer in silence. Because I did it for Scott. I watched Raw for a month, and it's changed me, man. I'm a different human being now.
Yeah, and Suit Williams, our buddy, friend of the network, new friend of the show. Can't Buy Me Love is pretty good. I may not have remembered Rhonda Shear, but that's a decent movie.
It is a decent movie. Sam's a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, so Mike and I made jokes about Patrick Dempsey on that show. Apparently, that guy left a long time ago. But like, have you seen Can't Buy Me Love? And she's like, no, I've never seen Can't Buy Me Love. And we berated her, and she's ignored us ever since.
Yeah. But hey guys, head over to patreon.com/Mike and JD show for overtime with Mike and JD. We're going to keep the conversation going. But if not, come right back here next week on the Voices of Wrestling Network YouTube, the Voices of Wrestling feed, and the Mike and JD show feed for all your Mike and JD show content. And until next week, mahalo.
Cheering at pro wrestling shows in Japan is back, and 2023 is already shaping up to be a big year in the history of pro res. That's why you should listen to the Emerald Flow Show. From the Royal Road to the Green Mat, Paul and Gerard take you into the world of All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah. Not only do we analyze events, but we examine business, who is getting over, what angles are working or not. Occasionally, we take a look at other Japanese promotions like DDT and Zero One. So if you're looking for more coverage of the world of Japanese wrestling, check out the Emerald Flow Show on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on all of your favorite podcast apps.
Hello everyone, my name is Taylor.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the co-hosts of Jumping Bomb Audio, the podcast all about Joshi Pro Wrestling here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. Every other Monday, we are with you talking about the biggest news in Joshi, along with show reviews, previews, and much, much more.
So if you're new to Joshi or you've been a longtime fan, this is the show for you. We've got something for everyone here. So check us out, Jumping Bomb Audio.